Yeah, the real shop talk. Just come and take a listen. Some grown men with unbiased and honest opinions, and with no agendas, so you just gotta check it. Talking love and life from a male perspective. We keep it authentic, real, no filter. Leave a comment, be part of the show. We here to give you 5 gentlemen's views about manhood, no doubt. This the show you've been needing, yeah, it's the real shop talk. Let's go.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's your boy Tony Massey. It's Monday night. It's 8 o'clock Eastern time. So you know what that means. It's the real shop talk, and we are live like we always do at this time. 5 grown men talking shop, manhood, fatherhood, brotherhood, and every single thing in between. Before we do anything, we need to introduce this illustrious panel of amazing men. So we'll start I'm gonna see if I can get it right this time. To my right,
you got it.
Mr. Derek Jones.
Hey, welcome everyone, and welcome back to those faithful folks that come back every week. We love you all. My name is Derek Jones, and I'm the host of the Relationship Gumbo podcast. I'm a certified life and relationship coach as well. And you know, this thing is amazing. Those of you who keep coming back every week, y'all don't only hear us and see us, but y'all feel it too. And we love the comments. We love all of the feedback that we're getting, and we're gonna keep on pushing. Tonight's gonna be a fun and interesting episode, I think. So I'm gonna pass the mic.
He ain't got no direction. And
all right,
he just threw it out there.
I'm gonna go.
My bad. We supposed to organically know just because like that.
We got the organics, but now I'm John Singletary, the host of the Help Myself podcast. So honored to be a part of this collective, and yeah, we're gonna get it popping. We're so thankful for all of y'all. Y'all truly are a big part of the show. Y'all need to go out to the website and then go out to the Facebook page and check out the commercial about the comments. It's dope. You'll enjoy it. It'll make you laugh. So let's get it going. I'm up. That way. There we go.
Yes. That's how it is. What's up, guys? I am Gunter Man from Soapbox Stand Up and Speak. I am the host of the Gunter Man Show on Instagram Live every Thursday night at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'm a relationship life coach. I have a seminar called Life is All About Relationship, private sessions where I meet with clients once a week to talk about all the different things to reach a particular goal regarding relationships, because life truly is all about relationships. Guys, I appreciate you. If you didn't check out yesterday's show, oh my goodness, on Dope Discussions with Erica and Gator Live, you need to go in our links and hit that episode. Yesterday's episode is something that not only should you watch it, but I think you should pass it on to all your friends that are endeavoring to build stronger, more long-lasting, more true to yourself type of relationships. Definitely. I'm looking forward to tonight. Tonight's a good one. I believe it's a good one.
All right, so let's get into it. Of course, we watch.
You're not gonna introduce yourself.
Oh my! I did at the beginning. Okay, Tony Massey. You can find me Tony Massey Cooks. Tony Massey Speaks. But my favorite place to be found is right here on Monday nights, 8 p.m. And yes, definitely, I'll echo Gunner Man. Please go support dope discussions with Erica. We were in the building last night, and it was bananas. It was a lot of fun. So make sure you are followed and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a single episode. So tonight's gonna be interesting. Tonight we're talking about the father dynamic. Now, most of us are around the same age. We're close to the same age, and so we remember 2 very prolific Black fathers from television. And these 2 men, you know, had families. There was a family dynamic that existed. Husband and wife weren't beefing with each other. There was no, you know, craziness going on. Both fathers had children. One had 3, one had 5. And they were both they were pillars in their community, in their respective communities. But there were 2 things that set them very different. One was their socioeconomic standings. One was upper middle class. The other definitely you would call the working class. The people who, it's not even about paycheck to paycheck because you're not saving properly. It's paycheck to paycheck because you just don't have the resources. Education was different. One promoted college to his children and everything like that because he went to college, met his wife at college. His parents went to the same college, and one had an 8th grade education. So couldn't be more different. And then their parenting styles were very different as well. One was more diplomatic in his approach. He gave his kids a voice. He allowed them to speak. He allowed them to, he talked them through disciplinary situations. The other had an iron fist, man, and a belt that he took off on more than one episode.
That's right.
He took off more than one episode. So we're talking James Evans from Good Times and Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable from The Cosby Show. Now, I want to make this very clear. We are talking about the characters, James Evans and Heathcliff Huxtable. We're not talking about John Amos, the man who played James Evans, and we're not talking about Bill Cosby, the man who played Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable. So we're not going to get into the whole that debate. We're not doing that tonight. We're talking about fatherhood dynamics. We're talking about the styles in which these men approached fatherhood based on their personalities and their socioeconomic standings and just their vantage point when it came to life. And we also have to take into consideration that the Good Times was set in the 70s. The Cosby Show was late 80s, early 90s. So yeah, it was a different time as
from
well.
From 74, and then the other one is 85.
Okay, yeah, so we're looking at a decade in between the time that they were actually, fathering. And so we got to take that into consideration too. But what we want to know is who did it better? Now, I know that's a loaded question, and I get that. But as it relates to raising Black men, because both of them had sons, at least one had a son, the other had 2 sons. And then, of course, young Black women. Who did it better? Who wants to take this one?
Ooh, I think I'll jump into that one first then. I don't know. I think you got to remove the word better. It's just different. Remember how you keep talking about that you when you get into a relationship, you go looking for something better, but it's not really better. It's just different. Right. It's different. And I think because of my personality type, because I am a talker and because I grew up with mom and dad in the house, I would lean more towards the Heathcliff Huxtable type of a character, meaning that have a conversation, set up an environment where your kids feel comfortable saying what's on their mind, feeling that they have those liberties, those freedoms to say what actually comes to mind. Because I believe in the James Evans household, when he tells you to shut up, you better shut up immediately, But it's funny enough, when it came to me raising my daughter, I was a combination of the two. I was the combination of the two. So which one is better? I don't know, but they're both different. And I pulled from both. I am the type of person that, hey, if I say something, pay attention to it. You don't have to ask me about it again. You don't have to question it. Simple enough. You step out of line, you're going to feel it, as well as setting up an environment for you to be able to speak, be able to share your thoughts, for you to be able to feel that I am going to be there to encourage you, to help build you up, and to set an example. Because I think that was the hardest part about the James Evans part of it. Like, how do you grow up believing that more things are possible when dad is going from job to job to job to job in 1 week? Think about it. Like, what example are you setting for your kids or your family to believe for more, to expect more? But then on the same note, socially, economically, if you're not given opportunities to make more, if you got all these rules and situations in place to keep you oppressed, how could you ever So then you lean on the love of the family, which James Evan had. He had that love of the family, the love of his wife, the love of his children, showing up over and over again, even though he worked at night, coming home after a long night rest, and still took time out to talk to his kids, to be there for his kids, to have these conversations, to have the heart-to-hearts with them, to make sure that they feel that family love. The father presence was absolutely there. You know, the fear of the father presence was also there, because let me tell your father, wait till your father gets home was a very real thing. But you didn't have that same type of dynamic in the Heathcliff Huxtable house. It was more like the mom was in charge, right? Mom was a disciplinarian. It's like she was the one that don't get in trouble with mom. Mom don't tell me what to do. Oh, yes, she does, mama, tell you what to do. So these are like the first things that pop in my mind regarding the two shows.
I'll jump in. I saw you, John. You want to jump in? I will definitely defer to Captain America. I'll say this. I think for me, I'll start for me personally, and then I'll look at like more of a global view. I think for me, I had two parents that were, even though I grew up in the DC area, they're from South Carolina, and they was more James Evans, because that's just. I think over time though. Environments change. They're in a different environment. I think it kind of molded more towards the Heathcliff Huxtable thing. But I think both dads were perfect for their respective environments. So like James Evans, to me, I feel like he knew the dangers and everything that was around them, and he was training them to survive. And I think, and so in order for them to survive, he had to basically, this is just my opinion, he had to parent them in a way that he knew that there were going to be some hard things. And so if you can handle me being hard, then you can go out here and hopefully navigate the landscape outside. Heathcliff Huxtable didn't have those same things. And so he may not have necessarily had to show his kids that side, because when they walked outside the house, it was basically, they didn't have to worry about, for the most part, we know things happen everywhere, but they didn't have to worry about survival as much. So he didn't necessarily have to give them all of that. He gave them what, like now, the way Heathcliff Huxtable parented is probably, for this new generation, is probably the best thing you could probably do, because they different. Because my daughter's only, she'll be 13, but when she first was young, I went James Evans because that's how I was raised. But when I actually started looking at who she was emotionally, I was like, yeah, you need more Heathcliff, because I need you to turn out okay. And that James Evans thing was a little scary to her. So I'm gonna go ahead and land there. I'm gonna defer the mic over to Mr. Singleton.
I'll take that deference. Yeah, that's a tough word to say, better. I think the question would be a question of preference. So if you ask me, I was gonna wear the shirt, but I wore it for an earlier episode, so I didn't want to repeat the shirt this early, but I got a shirt that says "Raised by James Evans, raising strong Black fathers since 1974." And so you got to consider the context. The Huxtables, Cosby Show is mid to late 80s, and Good Times is early to mid 70s, and we're talking about a totally different context. I mean, the Huxtables, they had this beautiful brownstone, you know what I mean? Like, y'all know what kind of money that takes. And, Good Times was in Cabrini Green, you know what I mean? So, that's a whole different thing. I think we're not giving James Evans credit. We just think about the power of his belt. But, there were a lot of things that he did during his short stint, because he was only there for 2 years. And what so I'll just put it out there. My preference is James Evans. I'll just put it out there. That's my preference. But what I do salute both of them, and this isn't, like we said, we're not supporting the shenanigans of Bill Cosby, or this isn't a referendum on him of any sort. But what you have to do is you got to appreciate that both of these men, at a time when Black stories were not getting told and we weren't being able to set that narrative, both of them. So when Norman Lear was creating Good Times, he had no desire to make James Evans that type of character. That was John Amos stepping up and saying, look, I don't want him to be like this. We're not going to tolerate this, this, and that, which eventually ended up with him being let go and released from the show and written out of the storyline because there were things that he refused to allow. And it came from the same place with Bill Cosby. Like, I want to see a Black family represented this way because we're represented all kind of other ways, and I want to see it represented that way. So at the time, I didn't appreciate because I'm from the hood, projects and all that. So I didn't appreciate the Huxtables during that time because, we go outside, they shooting. So I'm like, man, we ain't got that kind of life, man. You know what I'm saying? I'll take some Gordon Gartrell. No,
Gordon Gartrell, that shirt.
but say, I didn't appreciate them, but as I get older, I appreciate what they brought to the table, how they, grandfather, they represented generations of Black excellence, diversity of thought, diversity of skill, so many things that they touched on that we weren't catching. A lot of us weren't catching in real time. So again, to echo what Gunner Man said, to echo what Derek said, and I know Tony Massey pastor finna bring it home for us, but you just got to appreciate what both of them brought to the table, especially in a time when our stories weren't being told, and they went and they wanted to tell our stories in a more authentic way.
Absolutely, and I said better, but I agree with all of you. It's hard to quantify a better when it comes to these two parenting styles, because in my opinion, I think you need a bit of both, right? And you're right. We have to take into consideration what James Evans was facing as a father, trying to raise his family in Cabrini Green, a notorious
Chicago projects.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the episodes were very different. I think the closest Theo got into trouble was when somebody put weed in his book or something like that. But his problems were very middle-class problems. You know what I mean? He did middle-class things. Whereas both Michael and JJ got caught up in gangs. You know what I mean? They both, and JJ was even shot, so they
Mad
faced, Dog. Yeah, Mad Dog, right. So they faced a different dynamic. And before I say anything else, I want to shout out Tony Watts. Tony couldn't be with us this evening. He's probably saving the world somewhere, knowing Tony Watts. But I know he's watching. I know he's listening. So I know you're here in spirit, brother. That's the fifth man of the crew. But, Tony Watson actually had a conversation about the Mad Dog episode. And if you remember when JJ, for those of you who may not saw the episode or maybe not remember it, JJ got shot by Mad Dog because Mad Dog wanted him to go to a gang thing or whatever. And James only wanted revenge from Mad Dog. He wanted to hurt him because he hurt his son. But then when he went to court, what he saw this very powerful moment between Mad Dog and his mother, where she chastised him for being her biggest problem. And it touched James in a way that made him kind of feel empathy for the young man, because what he understood in that moment was, although JJ got shot and he would heal, his wounds would heal, and he would come home to a loving family, and he would come home to people who were surrounding him with love, and he would, be okay. He understood that although Mad Dog had avoided jail, he's living in hell. And I thought this was so powerful because, again, we see James as this very, disconnected, disciplinarian. But the reality was he was very much a loving father. I mean, he took an interest in his children's lives, and he was always present. And what I find interesting, too, is both men loved their wives. And I love the fact that whether it was on purpose or by happenstance, we had a chance to see, whether in the 70s or in the 80s, Black men lead their families from a place of love. I love the fact, and not just love, but they elevated their wives. They celebrated their wives, both as women, as just I love you as a woman, but also as mothers. So let me ask this question: and you guys kind of touched on it already a little bit, but let's go a little deeper. Could you take each father in their own time? Could you take Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable and put him in the Evans homes? And could you take James and put him in the Huxtable home? And what would happen as a result if one day there was a Freaky Friday situation, they switch? What was that? There was a TV show that where they would swap families, a family swap. I can't. If somebody in the comments remind me of that TV show where a parent would leave the home and they would swap homes. What do you think the dynamic would be for those two different personalities in those two different homes?
I think it would be a disaster, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. I can't see Heathcliff Huxtable setting foot in that project and surviving one day. I don't. And then I think James Evans would not know. He would not know how to maneuver in their environment. I think there's certain parts of us, just as Black people, that we adapt to certain things. But I think those environments were so diametrically different that I don't even know if Heathcliff Huxtable could have made it down the block. So I'm gonna leave it there.
Well, Dr. Huxtable had a little swag on him. He probably could have handled some things.
He was second generation though, man. You know what I mean? He wasn't like a dude from the hood and took his family out. His dad and his mom were well-to-do, so.
See, but my thinking is this. I believe that we're a resilient people. Above anything and everything, we're resilient, meaning that we are adaptable. And not only adaptable to the place of making it or dominating in it. Making it or dominating in it. Because it wasn't like James Evans wasn't trying to find the right fit for his abilities. He had abilities, but he just couldn't find the right fit. I think with more opportunities, even though it's 10 years later, he would have found the right fit to exist and to make it in the Heathcliff Huxtable. As far as Heathcliff Huxtable going back, he's still a Black man. And a Black man has the ability to roll back and remember what it's like to go outside, where James didn't have the opportunities to speak to white people on a regular basis, where Heathcliff spoke to white people because he was a doctor. He spoke to white people on a regular basis, so he would formulate and have these abilities and aptitude to know how to navigate, to work within both means. So for him to go back to those time of the projects, definitely, because I look at my own personal situation. I grew up in the projects. Cedric Housing Projects in the Bronx, University Avenue. You don't get much worse than that area. But by the time I was 10, we moved to Mount Vernon, New York, which was the suburbs. Even though it's right next to the Bronx, we went from apartment buildings, projects, to private home, backyard, baseball fields, basketball courts, tennis courts, play parks down the block. And just like my father had to adapt, he fit right in. He continued to roll and operate in the environment that he's in. I'll give you another thing also. Growing up in New York, we have a different view on Black people than people who grew up in the South. Let me explain. Growing up in New York, we had the Heathcliff Huxtables on the regular. You could see them. You saw the well-to-do Blacks, and you saw the poor-to-do, the people, the less, who had less Blacks. You saw both sides, both dynamics, both prevalent. So you're not running into either too much, or so you develop a scope that, all these people exist. All these people exist. It wasn't until I started going on tour and I went down to the South, like North Carolina area, where I saw black people that look like the black people you see on TV, like, oh, don't make them speak. Don't let them speak. It was a shock to my system. Like, so this is the black people that America is used to seeing. Notice that's what I had to say. I said, this is the black people that America gets to look over and to say that they're a particular way. Because in New York, we have them all. We have a mixture of everything from super wealthy to everyday. I mean, I grew up in Mount Vernon. So down the block was Denzel Washington. 2 blocks over was Debbie Allen. 3 blocks over across the street was Felicia Rashad. I grew up with Felicia Rashad, her son, her kids. So we got to see that level. We got to see that level of making it. But I'm talking about even being younger, you had those dynamics where you were able to adapt. Because I believe that they'll be able to adapt. But I clearly see what Derek says to put James Evan in the Huxtable. Like, how are you going to survive that? How are you going to live at that level? But he had the resilience. He had the resilience to keep going after. That's what he did. He proved himself to be consistent and going after trying to provide for his family.
First of all, Chicago ain't the South. So
it's where everybody from the South went.
Right, but I'm talking about the style of people. Because in Chicago, you don't have back then, you didn't have such a diverse group. You didn't see both sides on the regular basis.
I don't know. I'm from the South. I saw it. I mean, we might not have had superstars like you talk about, but I mean, that was well to do. But I think for me, I think the swap would have been, again, like there could have been some figuring it out. Because again, the resiliency, I totally agree. I think the 10 to 12 year gap in time would have been harder for James to navigate going forward. Technology, how trends had changed and all that, we don't take that into consideration. We didn't get to see an 80s version of James. We saw early 70s James. So I think that would be hard. I think the styles would be different. So I agree they would be able to, but that particular swap, wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked. Because, I mean, again, like I said, Heathcliff wasn't a rag to riches story. His parents had done well. So he was raised well and was continuing that journey. Like this is a story of a lineage, of a family that, so they were connected in that kind of way. My man was a doctor. You know what I mean? He wasn't just a guy that made it. He was a whole doctor. They had the Greek life going on. They historically black colleges and universities. I think it would have been tough for James to navigate that. And then, I don't see Heathcliff being able to survive in the Cabrini Green, man. Like, I don't see that, man. He did have swag, but them sweaters wasn't gonna get it in the Cabrini Green. That's
Let me do my little 30 seconds. So for me, over time, I think Black people, no matter where you come, can adapt in that. And I think dope discussion with Erica was talking about Eddie Murphy and trading places. But I'm coming from a place of, if you just dropped them, like if there was like a transporter and you dropped them in there, how would that shock? Would either one of them be able to be like, all right, I can do this? Or would they be like, oh, hit, like I can see Heathcliff Huxtable in that neighborhood where James Evans is from being scared for his life. Like that's like on the day when you drop him in there, what would his first reaction be? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
I'm playing.
But wouldn't you expect that James Evans would also be scared for some aspect of his life, his ability?
He would feel. Yeah, he would. I think my personal opinion. I think he would be afraid. Not necessarily of danger. He would be more afraid of like how he would fit and like how people would look at him and take him and judge him and that kind of fear. Right. I think he would feel like a fish out of water.
Yeah. Okay. Y'all go stop playing my man, Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable close like this, man. He like somebody, Tony Watts pointed out, he was in the Navy. So, he was in the military, I mean, he had a little.
Oh, you biased now.
Well, and speaking of Tony Watts, he did bring up a really good point, and I like to go back to this. Let me find his his comment. Would James have the money Heathcliff had? That's a great point because, when it comes to fatherhood, does resources affect your approach? And does it make it easier to be a father when you have resources? Is it harder to be a father when you have resources? Because I know for me, and I'll answer this question before I pass the mic, I grew up one way. My son grew up in a very different way, right? We weren't dirt poor by no means, but we were poor enough to require government assistance. And so, my mother did a great job of making sure we never wanted for anything, but it wasn't a, doctor and lawyer situation. And you could see how, Dr. Huxtable gave his family a very different lifestyle where he told his kids no because he didn't want to do it, or he didn't feel like they deserved it, or they didn't need it. Like the Gordon Gartrell shirt, he ended up not even taking that shirt back. As much as he gave Theo a hard time about spending that much money on the shirt, my mother was not going to buy me an $80 shirt or however much it cost at the time. But he ended up keeping the shirt and was going to give it to him. Whereas I feel like James had to say no because he couldn't. He just didn't have the resources, right? So when it comes to resources, it can make things easier. But then there's this really weird space that you find yourself in, at least I did. Well, my son doesn't have the awareness that I have. He doesn't have the street savvy that I have. He doesn't really understand how no works. Like I remember when he was really little, he asked me for something and I was like, man, I got no money for that. And he said, well, just go to the little box with your card and put it in there and get some. And that was his mindset that, you don't have any money, not because you don't have it. It's because you're too lazy to go to the magic box and get it, And so he grew up with a very different. I'm not suggesting that he's ungrateful or anything like that, but he's a great kid. But for him, when he decided he wanted to do something, I made financial investments in his hobbies. When he wanted to play soccer, we paid for him to go and play on a private league. When he wanted to do music, we bought music equipment and beat machines and turned our video room, our movie entertainment room into a studio. We catered to the things that he wanted to do, thinking that if we pour into him and not force him to, miss out on something because we couldn't provide the resources, then maybe that would motivate him to finish. But it had the opposite effect because there's something about grind. There's something about hustle. There's something about making it work and making $1 out of 10 cents that really gives you a sense of appreciation. So there were times where we would help, he wanted to be a photographer. We bought him a camera. And what ended up happening was he would just lose interest. And that would be it. And I remember episodes of the Cosby Show where his kids did the same thing. You wanted to do this and we paid for this. And then all of a sudden, you let it go. Whereas JJ, he painted from episode 1 all the way to the end. So I deviated so much from the question. How does resources impact your ability to be a father?
Well, if you think about like the opening of both shows, one show is standing over a pot of oatmeal, that there are no other choices to choose from, that there is oatmeal being stirred on the stove, bowls piled up. That's what everyone's having for breakfast. End the story. Cosby Show opens up. One kid has cereal. Mom is making eggs. Other one is having oatmeal because all that was all in one episode. All that they food in the section of just having food alone. It was a plethora of choices. Completely different upbringing, different feel to everyday living. So how do you deal with that? How do you like both? How do you like balance the two or make sense of the both stories when you look at the person? And I don't know. It's a hard thing to pull from, because I know that having money doesn't make life better, but it does make situations easier to do. You know, and when I say better, I mean the way you feel about yourself. If your relationship is good, that's what I mean by better. Because some people will say, no, money does make life better. To have finances does make life better. But I'm talking about how you feel about yourself, the internal stuff. So yeah, like to be able to afford and to do and to freely give. But do they grow up just like how you're saying, Massey? Do you grow up appreciating or fighting to get that camera, saving and scrimping and dying to get that camera? And you know they will not let go of the project of a camera real quick because they paid for it. There was a cost to them to get it. There was a cost to them to get it. You know, I remember when I was like 12 years old, it was at the age where my parents was like, well, you know, we now live in Mount Vernon, New York. Bills are being paid and all the latest clothes are coming out. And I want some of the latest clothes. I want the latest sneakers. I want the latest thing. And my parents just had to say, no, I'm not even thinking about getting that stuff for you. I'm not. So at the age of 12, I started working. I found myself a paper route, and not just a little paper route, a huge paper route. So every week I would go out and make my money. And I became so comfortable by the whole entire high school year. All 4 years of high school, I paid for all my clothes. My parents never had to buy my clothes for high school. That's how determined I was because I didn't like the no. But did I treasure my stuff? Oh, you better believe it because I worked for it, worked my butt for it. So I understand what you're saying. Like your son will lose interest because it wasn't enough cost. It ain't cost him enough. Not enough blood, sweat, and tears, as they say, to get it, to make him value it, and then to keep it running.
Man, you know, I totally agree. I just think something just popped up to me. I thought about with James Evans. I think the real-time switch wouldn't work if you just snap your finger and switched them. The adaptability would work. But, you know, I thought about it, man. What James Evans was really trying to do is he was trying to set his kids up to be Heathcliff Huxtable. Like that was really his whole goal, to do that and to set them up. And man, y'all brought up a thought. I'm not even getting to that on here, but you know, y'all made me think about something, man. You know, I'm thinking about my dad grew up from a good family, and me tell me I grew up in the projects and you had better than that, and you put me through that. Like, what's happening, my man? But you do have to think about it. Like the idea of, you know, where I grew up, man, literally. It was not, oh, you may or may not survive because you're a knucklehead. It's people really die. You know what I mean? Like I buried 27, 28 friends before I graduated from high school. Like that's just the society we lived in. You know, they went to shoot the house next door, had the wrong house. Bullets went all around my mom's room. Didn't hit her, but I mean, and that was life. That's what happened. And you grow up with that kind of so I mean, you're damn right. I don't want my son to grow up the way I did. So, man, he don't care nothing about him, but he got all the Jordans. He got all the, you know, we travel and go see stuff. You know, he didn't experience things he don't want for nothing. I don't even think, you know, I don't even have a second thought about it because sure, I got grit. I got ingenuity. I had to hustle because you know, lights getting cut off. We doing them. My mom used to do the midnight move joints. She'd be staying with some cat, and then she's like, "We gonna move out midnight." I'm thinking all this crap was normal. Then I got to the military and started telling stories, and my partner was like, "Wait, man, you probably shouldn't tell that story. That's illegal. What you talking about?" You know, and so man, the whole time, like, I think, you know, when y'all talk about that, what James Evans and them went through, I really think James Evans was trying to get his family to a Huxtable level. So rather than thinking about them as, you know, competing, we can almost look at them as evolutionary. They didn't get there because, I mean, even Keith came through and got the contract and it busted his knee. Like it was, you called it good times, but where was the good, man? It was rough, but And so what you look at with Heathcliff, man, this is a cat that's he can't teach his kids them hard time lessons. But you know, when I think back on it, man, they did an excellent job, man. This is something that make me laugh, man. I don't know why I remember this specific episode real quick, but Rudy had to do a paper, man. And you know, they were like, get the encyclopedia, do the paper. So Rudy plagiarized, right? And then when she asked her dad, she said, how'd you know? He said, I read the first line and it said there was ubiquitous melancholy all across the camp. Like, that always stuck with me, man. But they were teaching lessons, man. And, you know, I think subconsciously some of those lessons that they were talking about, some of us are still carrying those Cosby Show lessons with us today. So I see it almost more like evolutionary, man. But no matter what you say, man, both of these men love their families as a whole unit, their families. And then I even think about the sense of community with both of them. It was a different community with the Huxtables, but they always incorporate community and outreach. And the same thing with Good Times, man. It was, you know, Bookman and Walona, and, you know, it was always people around, and it was community, man. So, man, you know, we get to doing this bumping head thing, but it was, both of them were dope shows, man. They did some incredible stuff and put some incredible perspectives out there in the world that people didn't even think about us as Black families and communities as.
I think also the element of how honest they wanted to be as fathers. That was the example being pushed so often. Both fathers were super honest. They had to handle situations honestly, which was a beautiful example for us to see, you know, over and over again. They had to turn situations down because of their honesty. Had to, you know, that's something dynamic. That in itself is real good.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in real quick on the question about money, and I think I'll point more to Good Times when we talk about money and how it affects the father and even men in general in our relationship with money and what it does for us mentally and how it makes us feel even more of a provider when we know that we have a steady income coming in and we can afford things like Heathcliff did. But what a lot of times people don't really look at is the amount of stress that James Evans had to go through on a daily basis and then have to come home and still show up, and how a lot of times he couldn't bring himself to even share what he was going through because he did not want to disrupt that household. And a lot of that was, you know, his job, the money, and not being able to kind of do things and still try to keep that family afloat and be the leader and all that. Because we all know his wife made more than him, right? She's driving, but she's a bus driver. She was doing that, I want to say the whole time. And he had to come in and still lead that household, knowing that he didn't know where the next dollar was coming from. And I think a lot of men go through that, trying to show up as a father, but feeling inadequate because they know they can't financially take care of the household. And I think he went through that a lot. Like, you can literally, like, this dude, like if you had to give this dude 300 awards for how he came across on screen and you could see that stress on his face, that came from a real place. So I'm gonna leave that there.
So, Derek, you bring up a really good point, and I think that as much as we're talking about fathers here and oftentimes dichotomous relationship or view of the two men, John brings up a great point: the fact that these men were working towards the same goal, but just in different ways. I'd like to pivot for a second, and I want to talk about the women, Florida Evans and Claire Huxtable. The lady's gonna kill me for that one. My goodness. Claire Huxtable. And how different these women were in their way of loving their husbands. And what I mean by that is obviously Claire was very progressive. You know, she's a lawyer, but in the same time, she was very good at letting her husband always feel like he was in charge. Now, through their relationship, and through certain ways that, through episodes, we saw that Claire definitely had she had a dominant role in the house, so much so that I think everybody in the house was scared of Claire, and I think that's very authentic, because even in a household with a very strong father present, I think that allows the mother to be a little bit more. She's not forced to be in these roles. She can kind of dip in and out of these spaces as she wishes. Because I often saw that on Good Times as well, where James, although he was the door slammer and the disciplinarian, he shielded his kids sometimes from their mother's wrath, and sometimes he even stopped them from getting the punishment they deserved because he stepped in and kind of protected them. How did the two women, how did it aid? How did it impact their approach to fatherhood?
Well, I think both women did their thing, but I think with Claire, she was definitely a dominant force. She kind of, and just this is perspective, what I was seeing, it almost kind of looked like she was kind of a guide for Heathcliff to what kind of man, what kind of father to be. Like, he would kind of sometimes just kind of lean into the I'm cool, or don't get me wrong. Now he had his moments like y'all tripping. We ain't doing that. I'm not saying that, because we know the face, when they was out of line. But it was almost kind of like she was more of a guy, and it was almost more of a hands-on guy. Whereas in my opinion, I think what you would see with Florida, damn, what you would see with her, man, she was more of a facilitator. James Evans was the strong energy in that household. And it was, calm down. Let me be the voice of reason. You ain't gonna do that. And then, she put her foot down like, all right, James, we ain't gonna do that. But that wasn't the primary role, where you almost saw that role being more of a primary for Claire, so that's just my opinion from what I was seeing, watching the energy flow.
For me, it's hard to say. Because it all depends on what episode you remember. Like let's be honest about it. Like when you're thinking about it, like we have an audience here trying to pull from what do they remember of these shows, and does it line up to the things that we're sharing on? So both fathers knew that they had someone watching their blind spots. Both fathers knew that if they couldn't show up, that both wives will be able to handle the given situation. Both fathers or husbands knew that their beliefs will be passed on, shared with their family, whether they were present or not. Whether the disciplinarian, whether it be the hard approach, whether it be the softness, because both fathers had both sides. Both fathers had both sides. But when you quickly think about, James Evans, you think of the iron fist, but he had both, to have the conversations and to learn from his kids, to want to feed their passions, but also to make their women feel loved, to make sure that they felt like they have huge value, like both saying, like, I couldn't do it without you. Finances, they had the finances to Heathcliff had the finances to go do whatever in that mindset, but he also knew that he had a wife that will back him up 100%. Well, even if they disagreed, they kind of disagreed behind the scenes type of thing. They would disagree behind the scenes, where James, the house was only but so big, so sometimes they had to disagree in front of the kids because the house was but so big. I don't even know if we ever seen the bedroom of James.
That's where they would take him back and get the whoopings, remember?
Right. No, you saw the kids' back room. Remember, you saw the kids' back room, but I don't know if you ever saw
the kids' room. But
really? See, you got to remember the episodes. You got to remember.
It was just the kids. You're right.
Yeah, but the cool thing about it,
we saw intimate moments between James and Florida in their bedroom.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, you in the bedroom. I don't remember that.
No, when I say intimate, I don't mean sexual. I mean, like there was a I can't remember what the show was about, but James was mad about something, and Florida literally like manipulated him. Just taking him down, calmed him down, or whatever the case may be. And that was the interesting about her character. And John, you touched on this, how she knew, and I think Claire did too. They knew their husbands so well that they knew which buttons to push, which, how to pull them back when they needed to. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gunner, man.
No. Go. Because it's like I said, I believe both men believe that they had wives that had their back. So they had their own way of doing things and they had the liberty to do so. But they also had a husband that was willing to go out and give their all for their family, to constantly give their all for their family. Now, I see a comment about the man hate. I don't know what you're hearing in this, Freddie.
Yeah, I was going to address
I don't know what you're hearing in this.
I feel like we've got, and I know, Derek, you're waiting patiently, but I want to address this comment, and I appreciate you listening. You're a viewer, and you're entitled to your opinion. So I'm not attacking your opinion or you, but I do think we've reached a point. It feels like we've reached a point in the conversations between men and women that it feels like if a man celebrates women, then somehow, he's taking something from men. I think in this conversation, we're celebrating both men for one, being there. That's number one. Both men were there. Neither men ran away from their responsibilities. Number two, they were very open with the love that they have for their wives, which I think is a very important component of being a father. And we've talked about this before in previous shows. You, as a son, you can't tell me you love me and disrespect my mother, right? So seeing the love between the father and mother was an important part. And then they loved their kids. They wanted better for their kids. I mean, James wanted Michael to sit on the Supreme Court. Dr. Huxtable sent, his kids to Princeton and NYU and Hillman. So they both were great men, but I don't think talking about or celebrating women means that we're degrading men. That makes me so uncomfortable. And also that we can't critique men. If anyone should be able to critique a man, it should be men. We should be willing to open ourselves up to critique, even in all spaces. And I wanted to address that. I know that's not what we were talking about, but yeah, go ahead, Derek. I don't want to spend too much time on that.
Yeah, I don't even know if I remember my thought. Not because of y'all, but just, yeah. Anyway, I'll just say this in real briefly. I think both mothers showed how they could, because we have to look at how they were able to navigate and to know when to be hard and when to be soft. And I think they both did it like effortlessly. Like they knew when and how to support their man. They knew when they had to step up. And I think a lot of times these two kind of modes that we have to slip into, that the women have to slip, because we're talking about the wives at this moment. That's not something that is easy to do all the time. And I think for a woman to kind of know when and how to do that is a skill to be able to do that and to know when to do it, when to kind of step back, when to step forward, when they have to kind of, when they see a James Evans come in broken because he didn't get the job, to be able to step in and comfort him and say, hey, we got this. I got your back. That and to the same, to Claire Huxtable, she did that same thing in her own way. She knew that even though she was a powerful force in that house, she knew that, sometimes she had to kind of let him or allow him to kind of stay in his role, even though as a lawyer and as a very intelligent woman, she might have had her own ideas, but she wanted her kids to see that, like, this is your dad and he's doing his part and I'm doing my part. So I'm gonna let that land.
So
man, now that we having these conversations, though, what it really and hopefully I'm not going off the boat with this one, but
man, however it hits you, bro.
However it hits me, all right, bro. What I'm really thinking, though, we started with the conversation about James versus Heathcliff and the wife and all that, but when we keep talking about these different examples, I keep thinking about the different episodes. Man, they did a masterful job on each show of creating an entire family dynamic, because 3 kids in both shows, and we are able to see distinctly the personality, of each child, the styles of the parents. We're able to see them go through their highs and their lows and how they navigated all these different things. They were able to tell stories that were pertinent to things that were happening in our lives through their personalities and through that. So it's just masterful how they did that now that I'm looking back.
So I do want to, I really believe in, and I don't want to belay this, but I do believe in not stealing someone's words and giving them mine. So what Freddie was talking about was the comment that someone made about how how I think Claire had to parent Heathcliff. And so, and I'm not making excuses, but it's funny. I get how the word parenting can be a trigger, but I don't think it's parenting as much as it is accountability. And I think both Florida Evans and Claire Huxtable held their husbands accountable from an emotional place. And also, I mean, it was a running joke how Heathcliff would go behind Claire's back and eat foods that he wasn't supposed to eat and all this other stuff. And having that accountability partner is important because these men submitted to their wives' ability, submitted to their wives and allowed them to, govern behavior that could have been toxic. Again,
or
there was
submitted
more
to
than
the
one
vision
show
of the family.
Right. There was more than one show where Florida talked James down, calmed him down. There was more than one show that, Claire had to monitor, the foods. Even in my own life, I'm married. And before, when I was single, I used to smoke cigars like every day, sometimes twice a day. But there was no one there to tell me, hey, you're gonna die if you keep doing this, And then, I got sick and the doctor said, well, had you not been smoking cigars, you probably wouldn't have had pneumonia, blah, blah, blah. And so now I have this accountability partner who holds me accountable and makes sure that I don't indulge. Is it parenting? No, but I'm not going to lie. There are times where I try to, sneak one, here and there because I'm still trying to fulfill my own desires. But she has to remind me that although you may be doing what you want to do in the same way that Heathcliff has his hoagies, you're putting yourself in harm's way, which puts me as your wife in harm's way. So I get how that could be the term, but I don't think that's how that was meant. I think it was just about accountability. So, and I want to clear that up because I did go to a place where he obviously wasn't going. So I do want to say this. Let's talk about the impact that the shows had beyond the 30 minutes that the show lasted. And when I talk about impact, I mean, Good Times had a huge impact on Black family life, especially because I feel like they showed, this was going on in the 70s. So they showed the inner workings of a lot of families that probably could watch that show and see themselves. Maybe they lived in a Cabrini Green or a situation. Maybe they had a father who was a laborer, and this was a time where jobs were not abundant. So they had an opportunity to see themselves portrayed on the screen and see that, despite the fact that good times were not aplenty, you almost had to make good with what you had. And then, of course, the Cosby Show, the impact that the Cosby Show had on my generation was profound. I mean, even A Different World, there were proven studies that showed enrollment in HBCUs went significantly up after
I named my daughter after Jasmine Guy.
There you go. I mean, so let's talk about the impact that these shows made on our society as Black people, whether it be Good Times in the 70s or the Cosby Show.
The Cosby Show, starting that one, is the mindset that we can do a lot more than what's in our neighborhood. Remember how I talk about growing up in the projects, that you could see stuff on TV, but you don't actually think that you have access to it. That's how I grew up. I grew up in the projects, 174th Street, University Avenue, Sedgwick Housing Projects. So I grew up, you see the stuff. You see the stuff on TV, but you never think, none of your friends have it. So you never really think that you're going to have it, you know? And the thing about growing up in the projects, when you're of a super young age, you can't even play basketball. So, you know, no handball, no basketball was the only two things in the neighborhood. So you had to make up the games, you know, like I told you, the hot piece and butter, steal the bacon, red light, green light. You know, those are the games you had to play. You know, none of those games. How about Skelsies? None of that stuff. See, you had to make these things up, bro. That's the Bronx, baby. But then when we moved to Mount Vernon, New York, which was the suburbs, even though it's right next to the Bronx, like I said, it was a whole different availability. Like I said, not too far was tennis courts, not too basketball courts, a full baseball field, football field, all these things available. You stayed outside, you played outside, and you didn't have the fear of bullets flying. You didn't have the fear of people living on top of you. Because I'm thinking about, I'm only 10 when I left University Avenue projects, but I can think about how many fights I had growing up. I was jumped by kids. I was held up by a knife by people. Like that's real everyday stuff. Jumped by parents. I mean, this was and I was only 10. You know, having a fight, and then you have to go up in the elevator. It's only elevators, so you're gonna get jumped in the elevator. So you're fighting until you get to your floor, and then you hop out. And the person's not hopping out, but you're fighting in the elevator, and when you get to your floor, you hop out. Completely different lifestyle. So as far as back to the question, seeing the Heathcliff Huxtable, the Cosby Show, it let me see that there was so much more, that it was available to have these things. It was available to get to that level of financial increase, that you can live different than the struggle of every day. You know, I'll bring it home. The mayonnaise sandwiches, the toast with syrup and butter, cereal with water. What y'all know about that? Cereal with water. No milk. Cereal with water with sugar. And then you grow to like it, that you prefer cereal and water over cereal and milk that you see on TV. So Cosby's impact me huge. Huge impact on the Cosby's. I'll land there.
Man, so I think with both shows, man, everything that Gunner Man said, man, that Cosby was game changer. Seriously. So I think, you know, when you talk about the 70s, what you find is a lot of those shows were written by white men with black characters. So as black people, we were characters. Like, we didn't have nuance. And when you look at Good Times, it's a precarious situation, obviously, but you're able to see nuance in that family. You're able to see, you know, there were hustlers, you know, hey. You know, you had hustlers, you had all of that, but you get to see, you know, children growing up with an opinion about the politics of the time and how they wanted to change the world and the things that they wanted to do. And a mother and a father, although they're struggling, man, they doing everything they can day in, day out to keep that nuclear family strong. So, you know, we got to see nuance in black stories told. I mean, obviously I love the Jeffersons, but George Jefferson's a character, you know, that doesn't show us what we're like as black people. He's a character, you know, and, you know, you get more nuance with Good Times. And then again, like you said, with the Cosby Show, just a game changer. Just Bill Cosby went in there and said, I'm going to show something totally different that exists. You know, he didn't create it out of his imagination. It exists, but kids like me growing up in similar situations, to Gunner, man, we had never seen nothing like that. And a lot of us, man, we was trashing it like, oh man, how he gonna have a black man as a doctor and his wife as a lawyer? That ain't real life, but it is real life. And that's stuff that I look at now and I'm thinking, like real talk, that's the aspiration right there. I still want to be able to own a brownstone in New York. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Brownstone in Brooklyn.
Yeah, man. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that those two men, to different varying degrees, kind of like I said in the beginning, were able to take that narrative and make it authentic to us, because we understand what narratives are. If you're not familiar with it, Google it, Birth of a Nation, put a narrative out there that black people were violent, lazy, didn't want anything. And this is a narrative that people still, real talk, believe to this day. So to take that opportunity to put a narrative out there that we love our families, that fathers love the mothers and love the children, and we're trying to do better, to control that narrative, put that out there, totally game changing for us. Is that going to be our shop talk? And I'm going to land the plane right there.
Yeah, I'm going to just jump in real quick. I think no matter what socioeconomic status you came from, I think there was a part of each show that we could kind of look at points of and relate to, just in being black. Even if you didn't come up with money, or whether you didn't come up with money, you saw the family dynamic in both episodes. And I think the overarching theme over both shows was black love. Like, shout out to John Shirt. It was all about love. And even though the Huxtables didn't have the same adversity, they had their own issues that they had to work through. And they always held that foundation of, we love each other. We gonna ride for each other. Even the siblings, the parent, we talk about parent-child, but the siblings, a lot of times they did brother and sister stuff, but they always rocked with each other. The same thing on Good Times. And if you look at that, what it taught in both shows, different ways, they showed you that no matter what we go through, we still gonna be a family, and we still gonna love each other. And I think that's the biggest lesson. And once you start from that place, then you can start to see some of those things that we saw on the Cosby Show, going to Hillman and all of these other kind of things, looking at how JJ progressed as an artist, looking at this, everybody, no matter what their circumstance was, everybody strived to be better and do better. And we got to see, even though James Evans might not have understood what JJ was doing, he supported the hell out of it. So I'm gonna land there.
Yeah, you remember the bank episode where JJ had to paint a mural, and the guy, the manager of the bank, called it trash, and James stepped up. It was awesome. So we're a little over an hour, so let's go ahead and wrap it up. But I think the beauty of those shows you guys talked about is it, and I love what you said, John. It gave a different narrative, because I do remember Birth of a Nation, and I remember how we were portrayed. And this was a movie that was shown at the White House, where we were portrayed as savages, and we were cartoonish, and we weren't just characters, we were caricatures, and throughout history. Even from the days of the minstrel shows and things of that nature, the step and fetch and all that stuff, you got to see men who, love their wives, love their families, and did their very best. Because, Derek, you're right. Although Dr. Huxtable had more resources, he was not without problems. I mean, if I think about it, let's see, Sandra became a lawyer, but I think, was it Theo? Theo went to college, but that was all we saw at that point, because Denise dropped out and married the Navy officer. Vanessa was supposed to get, I think she dropped out. She was going to marry Davnis or whatever. So it wasn't like they had a perfect family. You know what I mean? It wasn't like everything was perfect. They still had issues. They were just issues on a different level. They weren't trying to figure out, putting on talent shows in the basement to pay the rent. They were trying to navigate, real life, especially from an elevated point. And And I think that that's worth talking about, because a lot of times we believe that money will solve problems. And the reality is that sometimes that's true. For the Evans, if they had an influx of money, or, you know, when Keith came along and he got into the NFL and got them out the ghetto, for some levels, for some socioeconomic levels, money will solve a problem, but it also will create a new problem. Because I know for me, leaving the hood was great until we got to the suburbs and realized that we were not welcome. And then we were persecuted by the friends in the hood because we left. So it's not like it's just it automatically changes your situation. It creates new situations. And I think what both fathers did, and the reason that I wanted to talk about this, was they created a sense of consistency. And you're right. Unfortunately, John Amos, left the show and they killed his character. And I totally understand why, because JJ was getting out of hand. But while they were there, they created consistency. They created a sense of normalcy. And to me, that's what fatherhood is. And this is why I encourage men, even if you can't be with the woman who helped you bring this child into the world, you owe it to that child to be a point of consistency in their life, someone that they can always count on, someone they can always see visually. You don't have to be perfect. And it doesn't matter what style you use. It doesn't matter if you're the disciplinarian like James, or the diplomat like Dr. Huxtable. They were there. And it was something that their kids could count on through thick and thin. I remember the episode where was it JJ and the kids were trying to run a hustle to get the rent paid. And James went to the pool hall, got the money.
Yes.
He showed up at the nick of time. He showed up. And I think that as parents, especially as men, that's what we need to do. No matter what your style is, no matter what your socioeconomic standpoint is, no matter what your history is, the very best thing you can do for your children, the very best thing you can do for the community, because John, you're right. Both of these men were pillars in their community. They were centerpieces in their community. The best thing you can do is just show up in whatever form you can. You ain't got to be perfect. You ain't got to be rich. You don't have to have all the answers.
The greatest, your greatest present is your presence.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's end it there. I want to say thank you to everyone.
But Ben, before you do, I want to add one point. I do want to add one point. What I enjoy about both shows was this. We didn't get to see as a people, we didn't get to see all the things that we were able to do as people of color, all the things that we invented because we were people of color, coming from a place of lack, say from the Chicago places. Think about all the things that was invented because of lack. Because of lack, all these amazing things were invented. And though we are only 13.4% of the United States, as I said in one of our past shows, there is no way that anyone can leave their home today and not run into something that a Black person didn't invent. Didn't come up with the concept, from food to from environment to traffic lights to the way things are laid out in the cities, all people of color. To theater, to music, all that stuff. So when I watched these shows, it made you happy about being Black. It made you happy and feel good that you're getting to see a little bit of what you live on TV, something that you could relate to, something you can connect to, because you wasn't hearing about the other things. You weren't hearing about the amazing things. If you were to ask a kid at that age, who invented X, Y, Z, and ZYX, you would never picture a person of color being the one who made it. Think about that. And to be able to relate. That's why this whole, here it is, 2018 and 19, the Black Panther comes out and people are going crazy because the fact that still to this day, how many years ago since 1974, and we still don't feel like we belong here.
Right.
That we matter. Think about that. That's crippling. Crippling. So even though we see the light of the Huxtables, Imagine the darkness that they had to deal with on a regular basis, just being someone of color. Every day, but you don't get to see that. But it was good that they showed the element of their wealth and the things that they dealt, because we didn't get to see that every day. The typical African American didn't get to see that all the time. And I told you, the people I grew up around once I moved to Mount Vernon. So you got to see a little bit of both, but not everyone gets to see that diversity in economics. So that's it. You can wrap it up. Thank you, bro, for letting me step in for a second.
I'm glad I waited. All right, gents, let's go around and give your final words, and of course, all of your contact info, so that everyone who's listening can find you. I will start with Derek.
All right. Well, yeah, this was, like I said, that like all of our shows, this was an excellent episode, and I think to a certain extent, there's going to be a lot of us that'll take this episode and kind of do some thinking, and that's really the whole point, is to really think about things and discuss things and kind of see yourselves in these situations so that you can possibly make some different and or better decisions in your life. So you can reach me at relationshipgumbo.info website. Everything kind of funnels through there. And as always, come back and you see the website down below us here, realshoptalk.net, every Monday at 8 p.m. It's every week. It's going to be, it gets better and better. I know that sounds cliche to say, but it gets better and better every week. So I'm happy to be a part of this, and we're going to keep it moving.
Hey, what's up? Once again, I'm Gun to Man from Soapbox Stand Up and Speak. I'm the host of the Gun to Man show every Thursday night on Instagram Live at Soapbox Stand Up and Speak, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time every Thursday. And of course, I think shows like this are necessary. Yes, it doesn't have the same hop that it may have regarding talking about relationships and love and all that stuff. But on the same note, it has value. It has value to stop and think about the things that impacted you at a young age, being someone of color. Being of someone of color, these things mattered. So it should be discussed. It should be a conversation about it. I think about, once again, when it comes to the children, fathers, constantly, showing up, your presence being there, mothers, your presence being there, because I can remember spending and giving to my daughter. And as she got older and I asked her, what could I have done differently? Because I wasn't with her mom. She says, I wish you would have spent more time with me. Wish you would have spent more time with me, and she got the clothes for school. She got the stuff that she needed. She got that stuff, but she still missed the time spent. So hold on to that. John?
All right, man. Let me get in real quick before Bishop Massey closes us out the proper way, man. I got the cape too. I still got the cape from last night's sermon. So I got the cape, bro. I just wanted to let you, sir. I'm sorry, not bro. No, I'm teasing. No. John Singletary, host of the Help Myself podcast. I really want to encourage y'all to really go to the common landing spot, realshoptalk.net. I promise you, everything that you're looking for on any of us can be found there. So we want to encourage you to go there. We want to encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube page, subscribe to the IG, go and like and follow the Facebook page, leave comments, input. If there's anything you would like to see the men of Real Shop Talk discuss, please, we want to hear your ideas. We want to let us know how you're feeling about the shows. Y'all let us know how y'all felt about the shows about Black Mamas. So we want that input. We want to try to continue to do that. I do want to put in a plug. I'm so excited tonight at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Help Myself podcast is dropping, and it's going to be my interview with none other than brother Tony 1 Million Watts. So he's going to be on there. So wherever you stream, Spotify, Google, Apple, Breaker, wherever you stream your podcast at, go check it out. But again, you can go to realshoptalk.net to find everything about me, or you can go to my website and sign up to my mailing list. Just click and subscribe. It's thehelpmyselfpodcast.com. Again, that's thehelpmyselfpodcast.com. And what I did love about the show was perspectives. I think that's what we really bring to the table with us five and all of the people that comment and support and come and share ideas is perspectives. It takes a lot to be an expert. And I really think, and this is 100% opinion, but I think that too many times we get people out there without a real certified voice or a real certified set of experiences claiming to be experts and putting information and ideas out there as experts. But what we're coming here to do is we're having conversations, and you'll watch us even during a conversation. We'll be right here, and then a brother will say something or somebody will comment something, and then we'll come back over here, and then eventually we'll meet in the middle. And so we want to continue to have these perspectives. And so we started out, who's better? Is it Heathcliff or is it James? And we ended up talking about the phenomenal representation of the Black family and how much we love and all the things we do. So we appreciate y'all, man. Let me tell you something. All of y'all that are in the comments, y'all are number one. So that's where I'm going to land, and we're going to take it up to the bishop. We're going higher and higher.
Bro, what did you do to Tashura, man? What did you do to her, man?
She's mad about the
Sonic
parking lot, man. She's mad about the parking lot in Sonic, but I'm just saying.
Oh, man.
See, y'all know these two kids when y'all was in elementary school. I hate you. Yeah, uh-huh.
Talk about that.
Like, y'all sat next to each other. The teacher was like, don't even think about it.
That's all right. That's all right to share, man. I'm going to keep coming, man. That's all right. I want all the smoke. All the smoke.
You getting it too. And the smoke he shall get.
1,000 followers. We reached 1,000 followers today.
Oh, yes. Big congratulations for the Real Shop Talk on Facebook. We just hit 1,000 followers. So happy to be a part of that, man. That's insane. That is awesome. We're hoping that some of those followers would join us on the shows live when we put them out there, but that's okay. We're happy that you're here, but especially those of you who show up every single week. You are definitely a part of this show. We couldn't do it without you. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for just being in the building. You could be anywhere, but you're here with us. So we're going to keep trying to put out some really good content and make your presence worth it. We also would like for you to give us some suggestions. What would you like to hear us talk about? What would you like to hear from a male perspective? And as you can see, we don't always agree. We're five very different men, five very different backgrounds. Sometimes we collide, sometimes we land together. It depends on the topic, but what we promise to do is to be as vulnerable as we possibly can and always be honest. So join us next week for another episode. Monday night, 8 p.m., The Real Shop Talk. You can find me, Tony Massey Cooks, on YouTube as well as Instagram and TikTok. I got a new show coming up. It's going to launch August the 5th. It's called Chef in the Spotlight. So what I've done is comb my social media, some of the chefs that I'm following, some of the chefs that I'm very impressed with, whether they be amateur chefs, professional chefs, restaurant chefs, at-home cooks, whatever. I'm going to bring them on my show and just do what I'm doing right now. Ask some questions, figure out what is their process. So if you have a chef out there that you like to know more about, tag them, send them my way, and let's get them on the show. But as far as the Real Shop Talk is, you can go to the www.realshoptalk.net. Everything is there, past episodes, future episodes, all of our social media. That's our landing page for everything. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much for rocking with us, all 1,000 of you and everyone that's watching right now and everyone that will be watching in the future. We love you. Good night.
Yeah, the Real Shop Talk. Just come and take a listen. Some grown men with unbiased and honest opinions and with no agendas, so you just gotta check it. Talking love and life from a male perspective. We keep it authentic, real, no filter. Leave a comment, be part of the show. We here to give you 5 gentlemen's views about manhood, no doubt. This the show you've been needing, yeah, it's the Real Shop Talk. Let's go.